Hey everybody! So, we're gonna talk about the Galactic Center today, but I told y'all in a video last week that shit was gonna get kind of weird. I was gonna start talking about some weird shit from time to time. This is going to be a video about that weird shit. So first I want to make it clear I'm not an expert on the Galactic Center. I am literally just fucking with astrology here and looking for patterns and connections to things, all kinds of things. Some weird shit. Wanted to look at some connections to some weird shit. Okay, so anybody that knows me well knows that I like weird shit. The weirder the better. I like to explore weird ways of thinking, strange beliefs. Doesn't necessarily mean that I believe in any of this, but I like to explore it. I think it's worth exploring. The weirder the better to explore. Doesn't necessarily mean that I believe them, but to explore. So I'm doing all of this Galactic Center research, right? It's been on my mind a lot. Obviously, y'all have heard me go on and on about it. I could probably talk about that motherfucker all day. So I started thinking about aliens having to do with the Galactic Center. And before y'all are like, oh, this bitch is crazy and write me off. You know, they say the Galactic Center is like a, there are lots of ideas about what the Galactic Center is, but one of the ideas is it being like a linkage to other realms, other dimensions, things like that, other galaxies even, all kinds of things, right? So because I think it's very possible that aliens do exist. They might not be little green men the way that we think they are, or like grays, or, you know, they might be very different than what we think they are. But I do think that they exist somewhere. And I think it's very arrogant to dismiss that as a possibility. We do not know. It is a very, it reeks of human arrogance to say that it's not possible. It just does. So because of that, right, because we don't really know where ETs would come from, like, are they actually in this dimension, in this realm, or would they come from somewhere else? I think it's very possible that they might come from somewhere else, like some other dimension altogether. So, some other place. And then I get to thinking, well, where would they come from with that place? You know, through where would they come from? There is this idea that I have that somehow the Galactic Center is like a portal to other dimensions and other places. Now, not necessarily, okay, so now I'm going to start kind of getting, I hope I don't lose anybody here. Not necessarily we may not see this happen, okay? If this is not happening in our dimension, in our realm, we may not actually see anything come through the GC. It may not work like that. If these things are coming from some other dimension, some other place, we might not be able to see them cross through the Galactic Center until they, like, we wouldn't see them like fly through it, right? We wouldn't see that. We wouldn't see that happen. But there is a part of me that wonders if the GC could be like a portal. And I know that there are other people that have wondered something similar. Now, so I started looking, just throwing that out there, that it could be a possibility. Possible. I'm not saying that it's truth, but it's possible. Let's not rule it out. So then I started thinking about alien encounters that people have mentioned, that have said they had, that actually feel credible to me, because there is a difference. Like, I don't know, to me the Phoenix lights always seem like a giant psyop or some kind of bullshit. To me, personally, it never seemed legit to me. It never has. Never. It's just a feeling. I can't really say why, but it's never felt like it was legitimate to me. Weird, yes. Very weird. But more like a distractive tactic. Why that would have been going on, I don't really know. I don't know. I would have to go back in history and look at what was going on March 13th, 1997, or around that time, what would need to be distracted from. But I do think that governments can do bullshit like this. I think that they can throw distractions up our way when they want to fuck around and do a bunch of bullshit that they don't want anybody to notice. I think they do. I think governments around the world are great at doing that. and I do think the Phoenix lights it just always felt more, it didn't feel real to me. It didn't feel authentic. Never has. But then I started thinking about other ones that actually did feel real and authentic to me. Like, there actually might be some merit to them. First I looked at, and I'll link the Wikipedia articles to each of these. I won't go through each one of these in depth because that would make this video very long. But I did take a look, and obviously there are more that I should look at too. But I started with the Roswell incident. I've always felt like that had some merit to it. I always have. Again, I can't really explain why. It just has always felt more legitimate to me. So I pulled the chart now the Roswell incident happened in 1947. Things were noticed in June of 47, but nothing was actually investigated until July 6th, 1947. That's when I believe the sheriff's deputy went out to check on the wreckage. I believe that's what happened on the 6th. Either way, that is when it was investigated. I may be wrong about who investigated it. I don't think the government or the Air Force or whoever got involved until the next day. I think it was a sheriff's deputy or whatever that came and checked it out on July 6th. So I pulled the chart for the Roswell incident for July 6th at 4 p.m. That's around the time that it was investigated. So, but realize this actually happened. This was going on longer than July 6th. Before July 6th, it was into June. Okay, so I was looking for Galactic Center contacts or the other things that I've been looking for, in the research. If you notice, Venus and Uranus are both conjunct the Galactic Anticenter. There isn't anything actually conjunct the Galactic Center, but the opposition is there. And Jupiter is retrograde. So is Mercury, which is also interesting. But Jupiter is retrograde. And yeah. Okay. So with there not being any galactic center conjunctions, like this to me does feel like if it were legitimate, it wasn't, I don't think it was actually supposed to happen. Supposed to happen. Like if something crashed there, it wasn't supposed to happen. That's kind of my take on that. Knee jerk. I'd need to look at it a little bit more, but that's kind of instinctively. Or this this happened so that other ETs around at that time could do what they needed to do. Kind of like how Julian Assange says that he's a lightning rod, right? Perhaps this incident, even if legitimate, perhaps happened as a lightning rod to allow something else to happen. I could see that, something like that being the case. Either way, the Roswell incident always seemed more legitimate to me, just always has. And again, that's intuition that you may totally disagree with me, but it's always felt more legitimate to me. Okay, so another one that I looked at was, let me find it. Okay, is what happened with Travis Walton. He's the one, he wrote a book. I'm not sure if the book was called Fire in the Sky. The movie was based on the book. He claimed that he was abducted for, was it 5 or 6 days? And that this happened on November 5th, 1975. Now, let me find the chart for it. Now, he passed, where the hell is it? Hold on. He passed several polygraphs. Now, he did fail one much later on in life, but at the time, he passed several polygraphs that said he was telling the truth about being abducted. There's a reason why, though, people, you know, they're not used in courtrooms. They're not used in court. They're not, people can fail those and be telling the truth, and they can pass them and be lying. You know, there are reasons, people can figure out how to do all of that. So there are reasons why they're not used in court. So, but I do think that it is interesting. He did pass quite a few of them shortly after this happened. He failed one, though, later on. And I'm wondering if he failed one later on, and this was when he was considerably older. This happened in the 1970s, but this one that he failed, I think, was in what was it, like 30 years later or something? Maybe things aren't as vivid to you, right? Because it happened so long ago. I could see somebody failing something later on that maybe they wouldn't fail early on. I could see how maybe that would come into play. Either way, his thing has always seemed, his story has always seemed more credible to me too. I'm more inclined to believe it. You may be like, bitch, you crazy? But I've always been more inclined to believe it. Now, I pulled the chart for this. There is no actual time for this, just November 5th, 1975. I know it was at night. I pulled it for 8 o'clock. That was the first time that I pulled for. I don't know why. It just seemed like the right time to pull. Now, look at this chart. You'll see that the moon would be within that window that we'd be looking at for conjunctions to the Galactic Center. If the time is at all correct or close, the descendant is conjunct the Galactic Center. I don't have them pulled on the charts. But the Galactic Center at this time would have been like at 26 degrees something Sagittarius, so that descendant is right by it. But again, you know, you might not necessarily want to count that one, the descendant, since I'm not totally sure about the time, but the moon is there. The moon is conjunct the Galactic Center. Mars is conjunct the anti-center. And Jupiter, it's retrograde. And let's see, was there a trine? Yes, Jupiter was also trine the Galactic Center. So, okay, since this is kind of starting to get long, okay, let me go to the next one. The Lubbock Lights are another one that always seemed more legitimate to me. Maybe Maybe the thing with the Phoenix lights, it just doesn't seem legitimate, is how big of an area that this fucking shit covered. I don't know. I just don't buy it. The Lubbock lights, though, this happened in 1951. I'm actually inclined to believe this one more. Something about it just feels more legitimate. Now, when you look at this one, chart for this, you have Chiron conjunct the Galactic Center. You have the moon conjunct the anti-center. You have Jupiter retrograde. And you have Pluto and the sun trine the GC and sextile the anti-center. Are you noticing a trend here? I am. Not just with the connections, but with Jupiter being retrograde in these charts. There's another one that I looked at. This was for, let me see, let me find it. Where are you? Sorry, I need to get this like more. So it was the Hills, who claimed that they made contact with aliens in September of 1961. Now, if you look at this, you have, now this I actually do have a good time for, because they claim that this happened at around 10:30, I believe. Yeah, 10:30 at night. So in this chart, you have the descendant conjunct the Galactic Center. You have the ascendant conjunct the anti-center. You have Jupiter retrograde. And let's see here. You would have Venus. You would have Venus trine. Venus and the North Node trine the GC. Now, they all have some type of Galactic Center contacts. All four of these. And I need to go through the other ones. The other alien abduction or alien contacts or UFO sightings or what have you that actually seem credible. And if anybody has any ideas about ones that I should look up that actually feel legitimate to you, they don't have to be well known. It doesn't matter if they're as well known. What the ones that you know about that feel legitimate to you, that feel like the person was telling the truth, and you know what that feels like. I feel like most people do. Like when you know somebody's bullshitting and you know somebody's feels like they really had a real experience with an alien or with an ET or with a spaceship or being abducted or seeing a UFO. You know the difference. I think instinctively we know the difference if we really sit and try to listen to that instinct. But let me know if there are any that, and again, they do not have to be well known. But let me know. Let me know and I'll look into it. I'd be curious to look into it. Now, also, again, all of these have Jupiter retrograde, and I do think that Jupiter retrograde is incredibly important here. I'm going to say something, and it might sound a little crazy. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I almost wonder, because I do think that Jupiter retrograde has an affinity for the GC energy. I just do. I think retrograde planets have an affinity for it too. Kind of like out of bounds planets have an affinity for it. But I do think Jupiter retrograde is far and away the most important one. I feel like what it does, how it functions, is very GC-like. I think it is. Now, I find it interesting that all these ones that I looked at that have felt legitimate to me, Jupiter is retrograde in all of these charts. It almost makes me wonder if the GC could operate like a portal. If it did, does that portal only open when Jupiter is retrograde? I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. I don't know. I don't know if that's correct or accurate at all. I'm not saying that's the case. But I do wonder if that might be, because I don't know. I mean, I don't, it's not like I'm like a portal expert. I don't know. But if there are portals, I don't know if they're open all of the time. there might only be certain times that they are open. Perhaps when Jupiter is retrograde in the sky, it triggers something and it opens. And again, I don't mean you'd actually see like aliens flying through the GC. I don't think it's like that. I think if anything, it would, we wouldn't see it, because I don't know if they're necessarily part of our realm, part of our dimension. They might really be from somewhere else, and they, being from another dimension or another realm, they might have a kind of cover or a fog or a something over them until they want to be seen, perhaps, since they're not really of this realm to begin with. Just a thought, just throwing that out there. But yeah, if anybody has any ideas about this, let me know. I'll look into it. I'm curious about this stuff. I think it's really, really, really super interesting. But yeah, anyway, I'll link the Wikipedia articles below so you can look into these further if you want to. Yeah, I'm gonna get going because this one got really long. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Talk with Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Paterno Astrology on Instagram. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube and like our videos and all kinds of shit, search for us at Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.